like that song, Send the Light. And in order for us to send the light, we have to know where the light's coming from, and we have to know that that is from God. As we look at the lesson this evening, trust God. Read Proverbs 3, verses 5 through 7. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. When we put our trust in the Lord, there's so many things in this world to put our trust in, but I, sometimes wonder, is there anything better than God to do it? Is there any more evidence that he could even give us as another reason to trust him? It makes me wonder, looking around, the more I read about God, the more I understand about him, even at a limited amount, just scratching the surface, just reading the Bible, like one of our challenges this year to read the Bible, and we've changed out the bulletin board for the last leaders, is that if you'd like to do that and encourage each other, put your name on the list and start checking off those boxes as you read through the books. But even just at that topical level, just read the words that are on the pages, we can find enough evidence to trust God. That's not even going into study. That's not touching next month when we start into study about prayer at our house to dig into it a little bit deeper. It's not going to be super deep that you need some waders and mucklucks for, but it's enough to try and help encourage us and open our eyes a little better for how to communicate with God. All of this being said, has God ever been unfaithful? Has he ever been untruthful? Or has everything that he has ever said come to fruition? If he says, I will bless you if you do this, and we do it, he gives the blessings. If he says, but if you don't do this, then this will happen, and it's happened repeatedly, time and time again. If we were to put God's character next to the best person we know here on earth in our lives, God would still overwhelmingly have better reputation than any of us. And yet, people don't trust him. People don't trust his word. Why not? Having never lied, having never fallen down on a promise, I think some of it is that we let ourselves get in the way. And by that I mean, as a people, who are not perfect. We're not perfect, and so we kind of let that fall away a little bit. One of the reasons I think that trusting God is an issue is that, when we look at this, I should say, one of my questions is, why is there such a lack when God does so much for us? Now, looking at a couple of examples right here, two of them from the Old Testament, a very clear example of how great God is and how much we should realize that he's in control, and yet that's forgotten fairly quickly. We can look at Exodus chapter 32, and we can see inside of it when, not going to go into the time of it at this setting, but definitely something to think about. We're familiar with this account. The Israelite people are able to exit out of Egyptian bondage. They've been in bondage for several hundred years. They have been oppressed by Pharaoh and all of the Egyptians. They have seen the 10 plagues affect the Egyptians. The plagues themselves did not affect the Israelites. Now, the Egyptians got upset about it and took it out on the Israelites, but they did not suffer from the issues that God sent. Then they're able to go, they leave, they're chased by the massive Pharaoh army, and yet they're never touched by the army. We see that they are safely escorted across the river where they are able to be on dry land. All of these miraculous things from God. And while they sit at the base of the mountain where God is, and they have been told, do not touch the mountain, for God is here. They see the cloud. They can hear the rolling thunder. They hear the presence of God on the mountain. And yet, well, Moses ain't back yet. What do we want to do? Hey, I know. Let's make a new idol and call it a god. I'm sorry, did we miss something here? It's not even talking about ancient history. We're talking about the last few months of what's happened, potentially years, but in that time span, all of this has happened by the finger of God, and you're sitting at the base that you've been told, don't touch it, for he is here, and you can see the evidence of it. And you're going to say, let's make us an image and call it a God. How are they so out of trust with God when all of that just happened in their life? What about going back into Genesis chapter 19, and we see where I alluded to this one this morning and talking about Abraham and his ability to ask the question of God is, what about Sodom and Gomorrah? This is a fast forward from that conversation because will the righteous perish with the unrighteous? And he started at 50 and couldn't find even 10. So Lot and his family were told to leave, and it was only Lot and his wife and his two daughters, and his wife even turned around. So get out of the city. The cities were destroyed after they were allowed to leave, and Lot was told what to do, but he tried to bargain and say, but what about me just getting to here? What? Oh, that's a long way. Let me just get to there. But then it's like, go and dwell in the city. And it's like, well, I don't trust myself in the city. I'm afraid of the city, so let's go up to the mountain. He was just delivered from the cities that were utterly destroyed in a very big and pointed way. They weren't just destroyed, that was called a statement by God of how they were destroyed and to show us the magnitude of it. And when we get to the point that they're up in the mountain and all of a sudden, they know that they were there, they know what all happened. There's a city that they don't want to stay in, so they're staying up in the cave. And can you just imagine? It's kind of fascinating in a way, kind of scary in a way. Becky and I were sitting at a restaurant not too long ago, and there was a table behind us that was full of gossip. Those girls were just on it, all over the place. Everything was dramatic. Everything was so, oh. Can we not hear that in their voices here? In Genesis 19, not going to read the whole section of it, but verse 31, now the firstborn said to the younger, the two sisters, the daughters of Lot, our father is old, and there is no man on earth to come into us as the custom of the earth. I'm sorry, did God just destroy the whole world and we misread that account? Did they just forget what was in the city below that they could possibly see from this cave that they're up in? There is no man on earth. I'm sorry, I must have misread something there. They were just saved from utter destruction by an angel of the Lord. They were allowed time to get away from the city and to have safe dwelling. But yet all of a sudden they lose their trust in God, thinking that, oh, everyone that we know is gone. We lost our boyfriends. We lost any of our potentials. How dramatic is it to move from one city to another? I guess it depends on how old you are. If you're a kid or, it's like, well, I'm losing all my friends. We can make new friends. We can find new people to associate with, but I think this is a little dramatic of these girls to say, oh, there is nobody. I will say that in my own case, it took several years before I was able to come together with a good woman that would be considered for marriage, and yes, I married her. Because there aren't a lot, I could give the woes. It's like, there ain't that many good ones out there. And that may be the case, but sometimes you just have to look in the right places. You have to be ready to wait for God. And that kind of leads us into where we go next with this thought process is why is it that people so many times want to play God? At the Mount of Sinai, they wanted to play God. God is right here. God has done all this for us, but I want to see him. I want to be able to go up and touch the idol. I want to call it what I want to call it. I want it to tell me through my own thoughts what it wants me to do. That's all an idol is. It just sits here. And I get to decide what it says. We get to play God. The daughters of Lot decided that, well, since there's no one around, let's just sin with our dad. How many other times in the Old Testament, in the New Testament, today, do people play God? Well, I can worship God sitting out on that boat. Let me go get that new fishing line. Let me go get that new pole. Let me go get that boat that I just got. Let me make sure I polish it first. Don't want it to look dirty while I take it out on the lake. I don't think they're worshiping God. I think they're playing God. Another issue is that we got to think about timing. Sometimes we're in too big of a rush. Several issues above are because people forgot about God's timing and wanted to make it their own timing. 2 Peter 3, verses 8 and 9, but beloved, do not forget this one thing, that with the Lord 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is 1 day. Have you ever been so structured at work or so structured during your week that everything has a time? I got to get up and have breakfast. We have lunch at a certain time. I get home and we have supper at a certain time. Everything is structured. Everything is boom, 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 boom. Think about going on vacation. Do you care what time you wake up? What time breakfast is or lunch is? Time is still there though, isn't it? The minutes and hours still go. Food still happens. Everything is there, but it's a lot less stressful. Or you get your day off and it's just like, okay. It's great to be able to relax sometimes. I think sometimes we need to put that in our minds. And we also have to remember what verse 9 says following this, saying, the Lord is not slack concerning his promise, as some count slackness, but is long-suffering towards us, not willing that any should perish, that all should come to repentance. During the week, we have a structured time for lunch. During the weekend, when we're off, lunch still happens. It just may not be at the exact same time. And it's all okay. When we stop and think about it, looking at some research here and trying to map out timeline here, from the time of creation to the time of the flood is about 1,600 years. Think about that reading through the history. We see the first 7 days as day one, day two, day three. But when we get to Exodus and we look at the issues there and all of the different plagues that happened, it goes from plague 1 to plague 2 to plague 3, but it doesn't give us a timeline. But if we slow down and read it, we say that this plague destroyed all the crops. The next plague destroys all the crops. Well, if the first one destroyed all the crops, then it had to be a time period there that allowed the crops to regrow so that it could destroy them again. So we see that there is a time span there, but we don't know exactly how long. But as we look through the genealogies, if we look through the different accounts, we can estimate out from the creation to the flood is about 1,600 years. From Abraham to Moses, about 857-ish years. Moses to Christ, around 12 to 1,400 years. And an interesting part about that, hit the last page of the Old Testament and the first page of the New Testament is about a 400 years silence from God. No prophets, no miraculous works, no things going on or people coming in and saying this is that or do this or you better shape up. There's about 400 years there that is silent. But something to think about there in thinking about God's timing is that silence does not mean absent. We can all sit here in silence, and we're all still present in this room. Galatians 4 and verse 4 says, "But when the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his Son, born of a woman, born under the law." When the fullness of time had come, God had sent all of these messengers. He had done all of these things very publicly, very known for all these years. But then, at the end of the Old Testament writings, at the end of Malachi, there's 400 years of silence. He's waiting for the fullness of time to come to send his Son. And then we start into the New Testament writings, because the first 4 books are still under the Old Covenant. Even though they're written in the New Testament, they write about Christ. Throughout all of history, including the time of the New Testament, we see God has kept his promise. Christ came. There's the fullness of time. He sent his Son. Christ fulfilled the prophecies of the Old Testament. He fulfilled and even gave prophecies. The only prophecy yet to come is that of the judgment. Can we be patient enough to wait? I didn't put this here, but thinking about it, there were those that Paul had to admonish, saying that be patient, relax. They were afraid that from the first century that some of the Christian brothers and sisters of the congregation were dying and they were going to miss the second coming of Christ. He said, no, be patient. They're not going to miss it. It's going to be okay. If you want to think about it, they were so impatient in just those 400 years. Are we impatient today? It's been 2,000. Christ arose 2,000 years ago. We haven't had a prophet since. The apostles have all died off. There's no one giving the miraculous gift. Are we trusting in God? We can see throughout history this all happening. We can also see and believe that God is a rewarder of those who seek him. Hebrews 11 and verse 6 says that, but without faith it is impossible to please him. For he who comes to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. It's not enough to come to God to say, I want to be a Christian so I escape hell and punishment. Because right here it tells us faith, we can go back up to verse 1, faith is the substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. What happens when we don't see God? We can still trust him, can't we? I don't see the money that's in my bank account, but I trust it's there. I can log in online and see a number there. Do I believe that number corresponds to an actual dollar bill that's sitting in my name? We can trust that. We can trust God. Without that faith, it is impossible to please him. And to come to him, we must believe that he is. We can't just say, well, if there is a God, I believe in you. That doesn't sound like belief. But we also have to understand he's a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. If we seek him, we know that he will be a rewarder. We have to seek him appropriately, though. We see this in Abram. His name was changed to Abraham. Abraham meaning father of many nations. He was fatherless. He was 90 years old and fatherless. And the life expectancy at that time was 120. And you're going to call me the father of many nations? He didn't question God about it. I think interesting to see how this faith comes about. He says, due to his faith in God's ability to provide a son when he and his wife were past childbearing age. Romans chapter 4 says this very well in verse 18. There's several verses here that are good, and I gave the full range here to study. But look at the idea that he had to overcome. The amount of trust that he had to put in God. In verse 18 it says, who, contrary to hope, in hope believed. If your life expectancy is 120 years old, and you're at 90-something years old right now, and you're told you're going to have a son and become the father of many nations, That does not sound like it is the normal flow of events. It is not something I expect in life. But he believed anyway. He believed because he trusted in God, who, contrary to hope, in hope believed, so that he became the father of many nations, according to what was spoken, so shall your descendants be. There was no reason for him to believe that he and Sarah would ever have a child at 90 and almost 100 years old at their day and time. But yet God said it would be so, and he believed God. In a world today that says, why do you believe in God? Sometimes I think the answer would be fun to just say, why not? But that's not just enough. I need to believe that he is. I need to believe that he will reward us if we diligently seek him. I need to believe even when there's no reason to believe around me. Can we not say this in our lives today? Contrary to hope, we believe anyway? How many people around us have a lack of faith? How many people around us are, for all intents and purposes, atheists? They don't believe in God, or they believe in themselves, or whatever they are claiming. It becomes so discouraging to try to be a Christian and live the right life because no one else around us is. Do we still believe? That's what Abraham did. Jacob's name was changed after he wrestled with God and he showed his determination, not just his determination with other men, but also with God and holding on. We see that in Genesis 32. But we also see that all faithful Christians, and notice that I put that extra word in there, faithful Christians are given the promise of the reward. Romans chapter 8, verse 32 says, he who did not spare his own son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? He's asking the people a question here at the Rome. God gave his own son and delivered him up for all. How will he also not freely give us all things? In order to receive this, we have to do more than just seek. I can look around for something, but until I grab a hold of it, it's not mine yet. It's not available yet. Something about it is, well, I looked for 5 minutes, I couldn't find it. Is it something of value? There are times we'll tear our house apart trying to look for something. Beyond seeking, we need to keep strength and faint not. Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9. Let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due seasons we shall reap if we do not lose heart. What good would it be for a farmer to go out and plant his field, fertilize it all, make sure that it's watered and given everything it needs, but then right before a harvest time, he says, well, I'm kind of tired of dealing with all this. I'm just going to sit in the house. It'll take care of itself. I've done all this work. It'll just work itself out. We have to finish the process. We have to not lose heart. Yes, it's been a tough season. Yes, you've put a lot of sweat equity into that. Now finish up. Finish. We see in multiple verses, and I just put down 3 of them. Well, there's several right here about fainting not, but then as we look down at these next 3 bullet points, they all have the word trust God. Do we trust him? When I'm afraid, do we trust God? Those whose minds are steadfast, do we trust God? Just plain and simply, Jeremiah and Psalms both say, those who trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Why is it so hard? He's given us so much reason to trust in Him. It's not enough to just know that He is. It's, that would be like going to Athens and when you see Paul walking the streets of all these altars to all these gods, and then you get to one that just says to the unknown God. Well, we believe there's a whole bunch of gods, so we'll just put this one here to encompass anything we missed. It's not enough just to say, to go down to the store, buy a little fish sticker that symbolizes Christianity, and put it on our bumper sticker. It's not like a grade school that says my child is an honor student and I want to plaster that thing on my bumper and show it off. We need to do what God has set for us to do. We need to do it because we believe in Him, we trust Him, and we allow Him to live through us. And we desire Him. Let us not grow weary while doing good. And let us not lose heart. What will we decide to trust? Will we trust our own understandings? Our own ideas about timelines and what we should do? If we trust in ourselves, we might as well just put a necklace around a sign around our neck that says, I am my own God. I follow myself. Or are we going to take that necklace off that says, I am my own entity, I don't care about anything, and just follow God? Not wear anything fancy about it, not try and get a sticker for the bumper. If you have one, I'm not saying anything against them. But are we going to follow God the way He is described? Are we going to look at Proverbs 3, 5 through 7? Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. Which means that when we study the Bible, we understand the Bible. We understand the mind of God. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, not just the bumper sticker. You can have a bumper sticker, but that should not be the only indicator that you are a Christian. Walking in and sitting on a pew should not be the only indication that you are a Christian. As I've heard someone say that they were at the grocery store standing in line, and the person in front of them says, you can go in front of me. I'm a Christian. I want you to go in front of me. I'm doing a good work. Go in front of me. And announced it to pretty much the whole store without a microphone. That's not the indicator. In all our ways, acknowledge Him, and He shall direct your paths, because we are seeking His knowledge and understanding. Are we mindful of our own eyes? Don't be wise in our own eyes. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. Doesn't mean that evil won't try and find us from time to time. It won't try to knock on our door and sneak in. But we have the say whether it comes in or not. When it says fear the Lord, not in trembling because He's sitting there with a belt ready to whip us for doing bad, it's that we should fear Him because He has the power to acknowledge our choices in judgment. He's not in the business of sending people to hell. He's in the business of saving people from our bad decisions. He sent His Son to save us, that none should be lost. As we find His understanding, we start to see that. But He will honor our choices. And if we choose to ignore Him and His Son, we can also trust Him to fulfill the promise that He made, that if you believe in me and follow my word, then you may have rest to your soul. If not, there is another place prepared that will not be pleasant. It was made for the devil and his angels, not for the soul of man. So how bad will it really be? I don't want to find out. I want to trust in God. I want to continue to learn of Him, that I might grow my heart in the understanding of Him and follow Him in all my ways. That is a lifelong pursuit. Don't faint. Don't lose heart. Keep our trust in Him. keep ourselves focused on Him and moving forward with Him. That is our goal. That is the admonition tonight. Can we follow Him in all ways of our life? Are we currently doing so? Do we need help with that in any way? If there's a need of the invitation, whatever that need may be, we offer it now while together we stand.